So today we're diving into Cuphead. All my reviews are voted for on Twitter, and so far we've been on a bit of a winner. All the games I've really enjoyed and they've been great. The ride had to end somewhere, I guess.
Cuphead was developed by Studio MDHR, released on the Xbox One as a pseudo-exclusive in 2017, and then just a few weeks back on PS4. Now I've experienced it on the PS4 and, well, it certainly was an experience. Now we all know what Cuphead is by now. It's a run and gun shooter with a huge emphasis on boss battles, an awe-inspiring art style reminiscent of 1930s Disney, complete with some memorable jazz tracks. What you don't know is how frustrating this game is. Every positive I can give the game, I'm faced by a design decision which drives me to near insanity. Now I'm not saying the game is broken or that it's a terrible game by any stretch, but I am about to lay out what stops it from achieving its potential, and what hopefully the team will learn to take into a sequel. First, let's start positive. The art style and animation are simply breathtaking. It looks truly unique, and all boss and enemy designs are simply divine. It's not very often a game has an art style so truly unique, while also being very familiar. Unless you've been recently uncovered in an archaeological dig, unfrozen, reanimated, and then forced to endure life in 2020, and then you found my channel on YouTube, which really is the unbelievable part. You'll have seen Steamboat Willie or the early Disney shorts, which can now also be found on Disney Plus if the caveman is still watching. It's a classic art style, which must have been a painstaking process to ink, animate, and translate to a playable form. And for that, I throw my hands in the air and lay praise to the animation gods that Studio MDHR sacrificed countless youths to. The music, while not to my taste, is still a delight, with tracks like King Dice holding its own with some of video gaming's best original works. And I have to respect the vision the team had in complementing this style with a soundtrack that takes us back to early 20th century America, and is certainly not anything that I've experienced before in a video game. And that's about it for positives, let's go in. First off, the control scheme. Who thought for a second it would be a good idea to have the default controls mapped to the face buttons? From the moment a stage or boss begins, there is never a reason to not be holding the fire button down. Having this mapped to square and dodge mapped to triangle? What are you thinking? This is horrendous. It was causing me hand cramp, and the simple act of dodging to be way more difficult than it had any right to be. Did this game get tested? What was the reason for this? Did the team think the control scheme needed to be reminiscent of a day in the match factory? After the first few stages, I developed a case of Fossy Jaw from the constant missed dodges. Fortunately, this is easily ameliorated, as all the controls can be reassigned, something I typically never do in video games. I normally grind it out until I'm used to it, as I try to respect the developer's vision, but not this time. Cuphead is like Two-Faces coin. One side is good, and the other makes you want to kill people. The bosses, while not created equally by any stretch, are a great challenge, all well designed and are a joy to grind out, to learn their attack patterns and to find your moment to strike with a well-placed parry. The difficulty of these encounters varies, with some being beaten first or second time, and then there's this fucking dragon. But regardless of difficulty, they are always fun to fight and to master. The other half of the game is run and gun platforming levels, more in common with Mega Man or Contra, except unlike the influences that it takes from, they feel completely tacked on and devoid of any enjoyment at all. These levels can be skipped for progression, however they are the only way to get coins, which you need for gear at Porcrine's Emporium. So you enter these levels, die over and over again to some random fodder enemy, until you master it flawlessly. And then when you finish it, instead of a feeling of triumph, you feel like you just banged a £5 hooker, empty, full of regret, and you're left wondering where it all went wrong. Speaking of Porcrine's Emporium, 5 weapons and 6 defensive items are all purchasable through the shop, and this in theory gives the player the ability to experiment on how they approach combat. But for me, I use the smoke bomb, which gives an invincible dash, and the spread, a shotgun-esque weapon for big damage up close, alongside the default pea shooter. There was never a need to try anything else. These items seemed the best for all situations, and I never went back to the menu to review my tools. This also meant the coins felt pointless to me, as there was nothing I wanted, which in turn meant the run and gun levels lacked even this basic pull for me to seek out any missed coins. Now, is this an issue with the game? no. But also yes. It's my choice to not try anything else, but it's mostly due to a lack of player feedback. Let me explain. I spouted off about the bosses and how great they are, and that's true. However, I have fault even with them. The game lacks any sense of real damage being dealt by the player. Sure, bosses change and go through multi-forms to show a milestone in the battle, but getting to these points seems almost random at times. One attempt I'd finish a form with 2 bars of super meter filled, while at others I'd have just over 1.5. Multiple times over the game I thought to myself, is everything just on a timer? And could I get away with not even holding shoot down at all? A simple health meter would have gone a long way here to show the health slowly being whittled down, and to really evidence how much damage your special attacks inflict. Sure, when you die, you get to see how far through the battle you progressed, with markers to indicate boss forms, but this design decision to not include it during the fight is bewildering. Take Dark Souls for instance, or Hollow Knight. Both have fantastic bosses which punish the player, teach them how to approach the situation, and expect you to get good. It rewards you on hit with a slice of the health bar disappearing and a nice impact effect to show the successful hit. Enemy flinching or a damage animation wouldn't work in a run and gunner like Cuphead and would destroy the flow of the combat, but the inclusion of a health bar really would work. This may even convince me to try other weapons to see their damage values, which again isn't clear due to the lack of feedback to the player. And finally, the parry system. Oh lord, the parry system. When a pink object is on screen, this can be parried by jumping into the object and hitting the jump button again to neutralize it, and as a reward, it fills 1 slot of the super meter. Cool. Well, I've been back and forth on this in my mind throughout my playthrough. Parrying is easy. The reward for parrying is offset with the inherent danger of putting yourself in peril to get to the parry opportunity and not get hit after it. Up until the end, I would have loved the ability to parry every object, not just pink ones. My redesign was to make the parry window very tight, or that you take double damage by messing up a parry, something to really reward skill play, and not something the boss just throws out to make your life a little easier. I felt like this right up until the King Dice fight, when it was finally used well. Parrying off the cards to move through his attacks is exactly what I'd been looking for. It was a real joy to play, and this sold me on the intent of the system. I just don't think it was effectively used throughout the rest of the game, and felt more like a gimmick than an actual skill ceiling. The one area of the game that I can't comment on is co-op. The game has full 2-player co-op throughout, and I'm sure this is fun, but I like to play my challenging games solo for the first time especially. I don't want to use anyone else as a crutch, or as a scapegoat for my own mistakes. I've heard anecdotally that the co-op is fantastic, and I'm sure it's fun. But with the issues I have with the game being what they are, I can't see co-op influencing that. So in summary, Cuphead. A beautiful game plagued by design decisions which bring the experience down to a mediocre level. Everything great about it has a caveat, which I hope the team learn from for a potential sequel.
Thank you for watching. I hope you enjoyed the video. Remember, I put up new reviews, clips, skits, and random roast videos every single month. So if you're new here, put a sub on the channel, like the video if you enjoyed it, and please comment below with your experience of Cuphead. I don't think my experience is going to be the most popular one, so I wouldn't mind having some counter arguments. Maybe you can change my mind. Anyway guys, take care of yourselves, take care of each other. See ya.